everyone, it's Katie here and welcome back to my channel where we talk about all things teaching, languages and travel. Now today I've got another Chinese learning video for you. We will be doing a review of the Chinese character learning app Skritter. So first of all, what is Skritter? Well, I first discovered Skritter over 10 years ago when they just had quite a basic website, but it's now developed a lot further. They now have an app and it's become probably the most popular and the most well-known app for learning Chinese characters. They are a very specialist app. I'd say this is not an app for generically learning Chinese if you're a beginner and you just want to get started. This is more an app for someone who's serious about learning Chinese and they want to learn how to write characters specifically, and it's intended to go alongside maybe more formal Chinese studies or a textbook. Before we get into my review, I just want to say I've got a discount code for you. Please check it out in the description. It'll give you a small discount off your Skritter subscription, and also a amount goes to this channel as well as a thank you for recommending them to you, which is a great way to support my channel. So thank you for that, and without further ado, let's get on to my review. Today I want to give you a review of the positives and the negatives of Skritter. So to start off with, let's look at the positives. And the first positive I would say is that it is specifically designed for learning characters, and they've really built the platform around that. So they've got a really well designed drawing input, and you can draw on the screen all of the characters. It corrects your stroke order, like it specifically checks for that, and they've really built it with the idea of writing characters in mind. Now my second advantage is that they use quite an advanced space repetition algorithm. So the idea of space repetition is that just when you're about to forget something, it reminds you of it and tests you again. So you're constantly reviewing just at the point where you're about to forget. It's the most effective way of learning and remembering new things, and it's used quite a lot in these types of apps, and Skritter does do it very well. My next advantage is that they build in example sentences, and they've also included recordings of a native speaker reading out the new words. This is quite useful if you're using it as well to practice vocabulary, because you'll get an idea of how it's used in context. So another advantage are their pre-made decks. So within Skritter you have the choice of creating your own decks based on words you want to learn, or you can also use their pre-made ones. The pre-made ones cover things like the HSK exams and all of the popular textbook series, so it saves you a lot of time. Another advantage is that compared to other apps, Skritter is able to detect overlap between decks. So if you've got like your HSK exam deck and separately you've got your textbook deck, and there's going to be a lot of overlap between them, it won't make you learn those words twice and make it more efficient with your learning. Okay, final example is their pay structure. I think this is really quite innovative. So whereas other apps, they'll make you pay a monthly subscription like forever if you want to continue using them, with Skritter they have a kind of pay to learn system. So only if you're actively learning new words do you need to have an active subscription. So once you've learned that word, so maybe you've finished your course and you've done all the vocab for that textbook, you don't need to keep paying for Skritter if you're just using kind of in the background to review things you've already learned. So for example, I started using Skritter 10 years ago. I haven't been paying continuously Skritter for that whole time. In fact, I've only paid for the odd bit here and there, because in reality I found that I tend to learn vocab, particularly learn writing intensively in short periods of time, like in preparation for an exam that's coming up. But then after that I just want something I can use occasionally. So yeah, I think this idea of a pay to learn, free to review approach is actually quite innovative and can save you a lot of money as well if you're learning Chinese like over a long period of time. Okay, let's now move on to a few of the negatives. So the first one to say is that although they have a really great space repetition algorithm within the review mode, it doesn't seem to exist within the learn mode. So when you're learning new words, you can select the deck you want to start learning, and it will review. It normally does it in chunks of 50 words at a time, which is quite a lot to do in one go. So I actually use Skritter more for reviewing and revising words I already know, rather than learning from scratch, because I find that in the learn mode, you don't get to keep repeating them. When you learn each individual word, you can keep writing out as many times as you like before moving on, but it doesn't say 5 words later test you on that word again. So this is something I think, in a way, it's good if you're someone who wants to power through lots of words, and particularly if you, like me, have learned them separately beforehand and you're using Skritter more for review. But I think if you want to learn words from scratch, Skritter is maybe not as well designed for that specifically. The second negative I would add is that the tones feature. I think this is a new thing, and personally it just doesn't quite click with me. So when you're learning a new word, it gives you the option, I've actually disabled it in my settings because I find it too annoying, but you have the option to learn the tone alongside the word, which is obviously something a lot of people struggle with learning Chinese. The tones are quite difficult. But the way in which it teaches them is that you draw on the screen on top of the character. And to me that's confusing because you don't write tones on characters, you write tones on pinyin. So I almost feel it would be better if they had the pinyin on the screen and you wrote the tone on top of the letter that needed the tone, rather than writing it on the character itself, because I feel that actually I automatically see that character and want to trace over the top of it to practice writing it, rather than realising that it's a question asking me about the tone, how it's pronounced. There's also some characters have got multiple pronunciations, so that's going to be really confusing if it could be pronounced with different tones. So my final negative, and here I think Skritter is really missing a trick, is that they don't really use the gamification tools a lot of other apps do. So whereas other apps, if you learn a new word, you gain like coins or points or something, there's some kind of leaderboard, you want to keep your streak like every day. If you go in and learn a certain number of words or study for a certain period of time, you get more points and so on, which really kind of hooks you in and helps you kind of motivate you to keep learning. Certainly for me at least, I find those very motivating and helpful. Skritter doesn't really do that. It's kind of up to you to be self-motivated to log on and do a bit of practice when you want to. So yeah, that's my quick review of Skritter, the Chinese character learning app. I would say that is a great app if you want to learn how to handwrite Chinese characters. That is basically the only app on the market that specialises and does it as well as Skritter does. But it's not designed to teach words, and certainly not to teach Chinese in its entirety completely from scratch. It's something you would use alongside your textbook, alongside formal classes somewhere else. So thank you for listening, and see you in the next video.